All right, I'm going to start up. What I want to do is just quickly go over this. I'll end up giving you all this code. So far, you don't have all of it. But I want to show you how I built that thing in Bootstrap. Now, there's a lot of stuff in here. That's why I'm going to cover it over 2 days. Okay? But I started by doing this. I went over, and I showed you this the other day, but I'm showing it again. I went to getbootstrap.com. All right, and I clicked the download Bootstrap button right there. And then from there, I went and under the 3 downloads, I chose the easy one, which is download Bootstrap. All right, and what that did was in my downloads folder, it put in this folder that's called bootstrap-3-3-7-dist.zip. So I grabbed that then, I cut that out of there, and created a new folder out here that I just called, let's just call it Bstrap for Bootstrap, all right? So, came in there, grabbed that folder, and pasted that in, okay? Then I went in and extracted that file. Now, you saw this the other day, but I'm doing it in front of you just to show it to you again. So what's in there now are 3 different folders. A CSS folder that's got about 7 or 8 files in it. It's also got in there a fonts folder with 4 or 5 files in it. And it's got a JS folder with 3 files in it, okay? So coming in here, I wanted to pluck out what I didn't need. So under the CSS file, I need the bootstrap.min.css. So I'm getting rid of everything else that's in there. So now that's all that's in there is bootstrap.min.css. All right, I'm not doing any special things with theming or anything, so I didn't need that other stuff. The fonts, I might need some of those, so I left all of them there. Then in the JS, the bootstrap.js and the bootstrap.min.js, again, are the same file, except the one with the .min has been minified. We took out all the unnecessary white space. So I'm going to remove the bootstrap.js file and the npm.js file. All right? So right now, all I have in here is a CSS folder with 1 file in it, my fonts folder with all those files in it, and a JS file that only has 1 file in it. As much as possible, does that make sense to people? All right. I don't like this called bootstrap dash and all this other junk, so I'm going to remove everything from there, and I'm just going to call it Bootstrap. So that's what I've got under there right now. Now, I asked this question yesterday, and I believe Ethan was the one who answered it. I said, what's missing from here? And he said, an HTML file, because there isn't one. So what I did was I grabbed for that HTML file, I went back here to getbootstrap.com, wherever that is. I don't know what browser I have it open under now. There it is. And I found that basic template. So I grabbed this basic template, copied it to the clipboard, okay, came up, just went into Notepad++, you could do it in any editor that's a regular editor, not Word or anything, and pasted that in. So that's all in there now. Then I did a file and I did a save as, and I want to save that right out to my new folder that I just put in here that's called Bstrap, and underneath it, the folder that's called Bootstrap. And right there, so I want to save that as index.html. All right. Now, if you look up on the screen, please, you'll notice since I have my Bootstrap min CSS under my CSS folder, that's okay. Since I have my Bootstrap min JS folder under my bootstrap.min.js, since that's under my JS folder, that's okay. So if I save this, I guess it's been saved, and if I run it, doesn't look like much, but it says hello world. Okay? So why did I even waste your time telling you that? Well, because when I built this project, it's built in 5 different parts. I got to show it to you here. I can't remove this right now. It's not letting me. So I built this as 5 parts. The first part, what I just showed you. That's it. That's all we've done for the first part. okay? So what Bootstrap is more than anything else is it's you knowing how to go out to the site and grab information that you want. All right, and what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to go back out to getbootstrap.com again. All right, and the one thing that I don't like about the site is sometimes the stuff you want is under CSS and sometimes it's under components. So you might have to search for it a little bit. Sorry. But you know what? Let's just make it even simpler. Under that getting started, what I want is at the top of my screen, I want a navigation bar. So I showed you one of these examples yesterday, but I'm going to keep going down. Oh, there's a navigation bar. Ooh, that's pretty neat. And this one doesn't look bad. It's just a regular nav bar. So I'm going to click there where it says nav bar, and I want it to create that navigation bar for me right there. Does that make sense? I want that. So I'm going to right mouse click on this and choose view page source. And I got to know where to look, but I want everything that's under nav bar. So under my body, I've got a class equal container, and I want all this stuff there that says nav bar. Okay? So I'm going to go and Control C to copy it. I'm going to come down to that file I've been creating for you right now. I want to remove that hello world because I don't need that anymore. And I'm going to add this. So that's all that nav bar stuff. The only thing that's missing is I've got a beginning div right there, and I've got to close my div for my nav bar right there. All right, so again, all I've done so far is copy some stuff. Can you see what I've got now? Does that make sense? All right, now what I did next, because that's not what you have, I changed some of this stuff. All right, and I think that's the one I used, but I might have even used one of the different ones. In other words, I may have used, instead of that first nav bar that I showed you, because I don't remember, I was half asleep, I think, when I was doing this. But I might have used this one. It might have been any of these. I don't remember which one I used, but I used one of them, okay? Then what you have to do is you have to start taking that stuff, and remember the article that I showed you yesterday that I created for you? I made a PDF for it. All right, hopefully you remember that. So I'm going to bring it up right now. And it was called Bootstrap Tutorial, The Ultimate Guide. It looked like this. All right. Well, somewhere in there, 3.6 and 3.7, it talks about navigations and the nav bar. So they show you how you can set all that stuff up. There's the nav bar on 3.7. They give you all the code for setting up a nav bar. All right? So you've got to kind of massage grabbing the stuff from the getbootstrap.com site itself with a resource like this. What this resource basically is they took the major features from getbootstrap.com and tried to put them into a format where you could kind of just choose where you wanted to go. Does that make sense? All right. So what I did for the next part of this, and again, you'll have to take my word for it, but you will get all of this code that I'm showing you right now. You'll get all of it. All right? And in part 2, what I did was 2 things. First of all, under the CSS, I added my own custom CSS file. So I don't just want to use the Bootstrap, I want to use my own. It's not hard because there's not much in there. Okay? What this says is, as you keep pushing this nav bar and you're using this responsively from the right, when you get to a certain size, I want all of those things that are in there on my nav bar, I want them to disappear. And I want that little kind of button that appears on the top with the 3 lines under it, I want it to do that. That's the only CSS I've put in here. That's it. All right? And if we look at that, and now I go back up and I look at my index.html file, this is all the stuff I showed you before. That's all the navbar stuff. And I did have a README file here. There it is. So I used under navbars in action the navbar example. Okay? So what I did, and I want to show you this, is 2 things. First of all, I moved some stuff around. Okay? I put a search bar on the end and a submit button. This right here where it says my account, You ever done that where you logged into an account and it'll say something like here, like if it's Dominic, it'll have his first name, that kind of thing? That's for my account. That's typically what you'd put in there. You'd use some JavaScript to find the user's ID or name or something, and you'd put that in there. All right. Other places will say in here, there might be another thing here that says log out because you're logged in, and if you want to log out, you can click right there. All right. Other than that, I changed the tagline here, say rank in IT marketing, and down here, because this is one of the ones that comes with Bootstrap, I changed this and it says campuses, and I put the 3 campuses in there. All right. And I've also got it set up with that little bit of CSS that I put in. I want to show you this. I ruined the surprise. You see how all that stuff is in there and how everything is there? Now notice when I get to a certain size what happens. Do you see how all of this stuff, this is the menu here. This is menu, this is menu, this is menu. That's a search bar, that's a submit button, and that's some account information. But collectively, everything that's here, except for where it says rank in IT marketing, that's considered to be the navigation bar. Does that make sense? And what I said was when you get to a certain width, make all that disappear except for where it says rank in marketing and replace it with this, but when you click here, now show it again. And I did a little bit of cleanup work in it so it would look nicer on screen. Does that make sense? That's part 2. So far, we put in basically one CSS statement, all right, and we've added the stuff that's in there from the actual getbootstrapsite.com site, okay? All right. Then for part 3, the next part of this, well, what's been added? Well, if you look, there's now an image in there, okay? And if I run this right now, the only difference between this one and the last one is that. It's the image. You see how we still have this? Now, did it like this on purpose to show you, because guess what? Can you tell looking at this? Okay. Taking a look at what's on the screen right here. What is responsive and what's not responsive? Come on, you should be able to look at this. What is changing size and what's not changing size? What? No. The picture's not changing size. The picture isn't responsive because it hasn't been added yet. The nav bar is responsive, right? How it disappeared? The picture's not changing. The amount it's showing on the screen is changing, but the picture itself is not changing. So right now, the picture itself, that right there, that is not responsive. All right, we've got to add the responsiveness to make that happen. That's added in the next part. But I put it in there like that so you could see that. Now, if we look, and believe me, I do appreciate, even if it's a guess, I appreciate the guesses. I'd rather have people guess, even if they're not correct, than not guess. But you should be able to now, there's not much in here. The good news is, other than this line, which I'm going to mention to you in just a minute, but other than this line, every single thing that's in this CSS file, you should understand. This says if I've got a class named navbar, no margin on the bottom. This says if I have a class named Jumbotron, have it be this high, have it have this background image that does not repeat and is centered, all right? The background size cover just means, again, cover the whole area and have it have no padding. That tagline is the thing that said, show it to you, it's much easier. Okay, so I'm opening up the wrong one. Okay. All right, part 2. There's part 3. So if I run this, the tagline on here is the part right here that says there's Rankin technical education, or there's technical education, and then there's Rankin. That's the tagline. Not the stuff under it. This is the tagline. Does that make sense to you? The reason I'm telling you that is if you come in here and you look at the CSS, that tagline had a text shadow on it. So you could see the text shadow in action. All right? The text is white. The text shadow has been set. And the font size for the tagline just made it 42 pixels. If I made it 142, you'd see it explode in size. If I made it 2, you'd see it shrink in size. All right? Under the tagline is all the other stuff that's underneath there. Well, I wanted to show you this because, in a way, that's kind of code. That says right there, any class that has col in it, col dash. Remember how Bootstrap is set up with grids, a grid system? Those are the columns. So that says for any column, regardless of what comes after that, have it have 55 pixels of top padding, 15 pixels of bottom padding, have the background color be this, which I think is kind of a grayish, all right? And also set it up, didn't have to do it this way, but set it up like this where it's got some alpha in it, put a border on it, all right? Have it overflow and set the height. So what that does, again, is the stuff for Jumbotron that's in there, that stuff that you see right there. That's the stuff that's in here. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. Then we came in and literally added a button. Now, the button doesn't go anywhere. Notice when I click it, and on none of them, nothing happens. All right. Does it make sense to you that where you're setting up that button, if you did an href equal, for example, http://www.rankin.edu, that it would go to Rankin's site. And you'd want to target equal underscore blank, which you now know what it means, and that would take you off to Rankin's site. All right, this is a very simple site that's been created. There's a lot in it, but it's a simple site because it's one page and it doesn't go anywhere. Does all that stuff that I mentioned, does it make sense? Because what you have to do now, in order, and this isn't the kind of thing there, you know, what's bad is there are no real good books on Bootstrap. There really aren't. All right. And I know because I've looked and I've Googled it, you know, what's the best Bootstrap book? I taught Bootstrap a year ago at the institution I used to be at, and people by and large didn't get it. We had to go out to the web and we just grabbed examples and just kept typing them in until it made some sense to them. For the class, because I picked out their book that they're using this semester, it's another book. And I got an email before from the lab assistant saying, they still don't get it. They're 3 weeks in. All right, so how do you get it? Well, you already know this because what were you told to do on your homework? To go out to Derek Banis's site and look at his thing where he builds a thing using Bootstrap, and go out to the one for Brad Hussey. You're not going to become experts, but in a way, when you're first learning this, good, bad, or indifferent, you're becoming parrots. You know, I'm not saying you're a parrot. Years ago, I'll tell you this real quick. I got in trouble. I got called into my boss and literally yelled at years ago because we were talking one day and I said, anybody can learn this stuff. This is how I prefaced it. I said, if I can learn it, you can learn it. I said, if you give me a monkey, I could teach a monkey in a half an hour how to do it. And probably the monkey would do it better than you because the monkey wouldn't get bored like you would get. One of the students after that class went to my dean and said, Jeff just called us monkeys. I told you what I just said, and I told her what I just said. But the point is, you can all do this stuff. But when I say you're parroting it, isn't it kind of what you've been doing so far? I'll tell you to type something in, or I'll show you something, or they'll show you something in the book and you're doing it. That's how you're going to learn this. Good, bad, or indifferent, this part of the class, Evan and I are kind of going around about this. I don't know if this belongs, Bootstrap belongs in this class. All right? He makes the decisions because he's been here 10 years and I've been here 3 months. All right? So it falls on him. I understand that. He does value my opinion. But he wants Bootstrap to be mentioned. Why? Because a year from now, you're going to be taking an ASP.NET class. And when you take the ASP.NET class and you create a regular application, guess what it does? It brings you a Bootstrap form up. So it's important that you understand Bootstrap. So if you wanted to make changes in that form, you'd be able to do so. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go in here, and I probably should have put in more comments, but I didn't. All right. What's the easiest way to learn this stuff? Well, you come in here and you look at this nav bar stuff. All right, and it'll start showing you how to, what you can do. So you look and you go, oh wow, look, nav bar form, nav bar left. What the hell does that mean? Well, one way to find out is change it from left to right. And it's going to look a lot different on your screen, right? But you'll notice, and if you're going to do that, that's why I'll give you the working copy of everything. Okay? So make a copy of the copy that you make, or just you'll have to download it again. That's how you learn. But just again, when you do your next hands-on test, which unfortunately is coming up, it's going to be like Tuesday or something like that. You're asked to almost replicate what you did for the last test, but do it using Bootstrap. All right. I'm not going to expect that you've got something that's that is such great quality that you're going to be sending out, and etc. But it's going to be a starting point. It's something that you could build on later. There is at least a chance that if you go out and look for a job as a web developer, they'll ask, Brady, do you know Bootstrap? Then you can at least say, we went over it, and I consider myself a novice at it. I mean, I'm a beginner, but here's a site that I created using Bootstrap. Then you can show them that. And the good news is there are a lot of people out there that are going to Bootstrap, a lot of companies, and there are not a lot of people who work for those companies that have experience in Bootstrap. That's one of the reasons, too, that you're getting in here. Bootstrap is known as a CMS, or a content management system. You want to know more about that, just Google it. All right? All right, so that's the first three things. So you can come in here and you can start looking at the stuff that's in here. All right, but one thing you'll notice so far, well, there's not very much in here. That's the first thing. The second thing is that picture, this area in here, this is not responsive. And we move that out. We cut that down a little bit. All right? So let's go and look at the next part of it. Good, at least now I can remove that. All right. So again, let's look at the next part, which would be part 4. Well, we start with a CSS. You should never, ever take anything that's called bootstrap.something, don't change it. Well, I don't like the way, I don't care. Write your own and use your own. But don't ever change those. They literally have hundreds of classes and other stuff that have been set up in those files. You shouldn't jack with them. All right. Well, I'm going to anyway. Well, then you're going to anyway. All right. But one of the things about using the minified version, even if you open it up, you're not going to be able to understand what the heck. I mean, again, here it is. All right, you say, oh, there's nothing there. Oh, there's tons there. That's minified. All right. But if we look now at the custom, I think there's been, oops, I don't want to do that. Yeah, we'll use Notepad, that's fine. It's up till right, all this stuff that I'm showing you now that's in blue, that's all the same. That's the same stuff we had before. But now what we're doing is we're doing the stuff that says box. And box is just a name I made up. You don't have to use box. All right, but what are those boxes? It's much easier, again, to show you what the boxes are. Anybody want to guess what the 3 boxes are? All right, so we're saying how we want each one of those boxes to be formatted. All right, if we give all of these a class of box, then anything that we apply to that class of box will apply to all of these. But if there's something special I want to do for this, as opposed to this, as opposed to this, I can call these box 1, box 2, and box 3. We haven't gone over this yet, but you can apply more than one class. All right, you can do that. So let's say I have 2 classes. So far we've been saying stuff like div class equals hello, which is fine. But if I say class equal hello and put a space in there and say goodbye, I don't think that that's comma separated. I think it's just blank space. That now will apply both those classes to that div. So you can do that. That's totally legit to do that. Not only is it legit, you'll do that. Not only that, you can apply both IDs and classes to the same thing if you want to or need to. All right? So there's been four things that have been added here. That box, that box, that box, and the box down there. All right? So again, if we come through here and we take a look at the code, everything that you do in here is based on containers in Bootstrap, and it's based on rows. The reason that that's important is, notice I've got a row there, div class equal row. That div, because they're not lined up very well, you say, well, it ends there. No, it doesn't. That div that's right there, that one, div, this one, class equal row, that one ends right there. If I didn't do that, you say, well, why is that important? If I didn't do that, each one of these, so I'd have this, and then then the next one would be underneath it, and the next one would be underneath that. Does that make sense? All right. And you'll notice now, too, that when we look at this, now the tagline and stuff up here is responsive. It's getting smaller, getting smaller, getting smaller, getting smaller, smaller. The guy's gone. All right. And the responsiveness that was put in here said, now look, this image is actually smaller and smaller and smaller. All right. And that's about the size it would be on a cell phone. I could go down to here. But the point is, notice that when I go down all the way, you now can see everything. This would be a pain in the butt to read, but it's totally responsive like this. There is nothing that is that narrow. All right. I don't know how many pixels that technically is, but there is no cell phone, even the old flip phones, that are not going to be that narrow. But you'll notice it still is responsive. All right. So when you start to take a look in here, you'll notice we got a row. And it says by default that row is going to be medium size, and the number of columns will be 8, etc. This is the thing that's on the bottom, on the very bottom. Okay? And you might say, well, why is that a big deal? Again, it's a big deal because notice on the very bottom what we did was we said that equals 8. And I didn't do anything for the other 4. So by default, it's blank. That's where the form goes in the last example. All right? So it has to equal 12, but since it only equals 8, it says, well, don't put anything there. Okay? So again, the way to start to understand this, if nothing else, is to go and look at this example, decompose it. Look at each step. Take a bunch of the stuff where I put something right and change it to left, or vice versa. If it says up, make it down. Change pixel sizes, change anything. Change column sizes. All right? You'll notice that when we look in here, column, small 4, column, small 4, column, small 4. What is that? That is this. All right? So change them from small to something else and see how it looks. Okay? Try taking a different image and putting it in here. That's how you're going to learn how to do this stuff. All right? And then finally, for the last one that's in here, let me close all this. So if I look at part 5, what's been added in here is now that's 4 columns. That's been added as a form. You now know what forms are. Okay? So notice again, that's helper text. So if I start typing in, now notice how it goes away. All right? If I put in an email, if I put in a message, you must enter a valid email address. I didn't have to put any code in there to do that. I just had to start up the form. All right? So I come in there and I say, and I click submit, boom, it's submitted. It's submitted out into space someplace. It didn't do anything. But the point is, what you see in here is now a fully functional web page. Again, it doesn't go anywhere, but it's got information, and even the form is responsive. That's what you're supposed to get out of this part of the class. All right? So when you're told to create the websites, etc., not all of it's going to make sense. All right? But the more practice you get with it, the more sense, hopefully, it's going to make. Questions? So I'm going to take this project that I've got that says BS, and I don't think you've got this right now. And it's 2 meg, unfortunately. Even after I zip it, it's going to be pretty close to that because it's got a lot of images in it. So there it is, bs.zip. I sent it to Evan this morning, and he loved the name. It's still, well, it's 987K, but you'll all get it. All right. Now, I'm what is it? I'm dumb, but I'm not stupid. When you do your test next week, I don't expect you to use this one that I've given you. But if you want to use that as a start and work off of that one, you'll be able to do that because you'll have a fully working one, a fully working example. So I'm finishing, but when I get done, I'm going to go over to wherever I got it, up here someplace, and I'm going to email that to all of you. All right? So that's good. I really micro encapsulated the conversation, so you'll have lab the rest of the day today. All right, so we are on the 15th. All right, so you had your written test. You are supposed to complete the hands-on practice. There are only 5 of them in the chapter. All right. It says due day 17, which is tomorrow. All right. Tomorrow, as it says, what we'll do tomorrow is just 2 things. First, we'll do the path of light for Chapter 9. So we'll add that form. And it really won't take that long because it's a real simple form. Okay? So we'll do that. Ideally, we'll do that in about the first half hour to 45 minutes of the class. Then I'm going to quickly go over Chapter 10. All right? Why? Because we're supposed to go over Chapter 10 next Tuesday. And Monday, what we'll have is we'll have the written test, but that hands-on that's here, we'll make that all period on Tuesday. And I'll keep saying it. So you will have a written test like the one you just took. That'll be Monday on just Chapter 9. So today I'll start writing the test review for that. If I get it done today, I'll give it to you today. Otherwise, you'll get it when you come in tomorrow. I'd rather give it to you today because we're going to go over it tomorrow. All right? What I'm saying makes sense? I know it seems like we're going through this quickly. That's why we're meeting 20 hours a week. All right? Questions? All right. Well, if you come up with any, I'm not going anywhere.